Ezio might be coming back in Assassin's Creed. Yeah, you heard that right. We have got some really interesting new details about Assassin's Creed Hexe coming from Tom Henderson. And if these details are correct, Hexe could actually be bigger than we expected. Apart from Ezio's possible return, there are rumors of a complete combat overhaul, a shift toward a more traditional Assassin's Creed experience, and even a big one-year delay. But let's start with the biggest one, the possible return of Ezio Auditori. Ezio might return in Hexe and could appear midway through the story to train the protagonist Elsa in the ways of the assassin. Tom Henderson says this is something the team has been working on, but he isn't sure if it's still part of the current plan. Now, Ezio is easily the biggest name in the franchise, so hearing this is exciting, but it also has to make sense. Timeline-wise, it needs to be handled carefully. Ezio died in 1524 and Hexa is rumored to take place in the 16th century, during the witch trial period. The only realistic window where this fits is after Revelations, but before Embers, somewhere around 1515. That's basically the one gap in his life where Ubisoft can place something like this without breaking established canon. We already know that around 1520, after Revelations, Ezio trained Xiao Jun. So it's possible that he could briefly travel to Germany as well and train Elsa too. Now, here where it gets complicated. The big witch hunts in Germany mostly happened after Ezio died in 1524. So, if he appears in Hexe, the game would need to focus on the earlier part of that period before the trials became widespread. Another option is that Ubisoft slightly adjusts the timeline. For example, showing certain trials happening a few years earlier than it did in real history. I'm honestly fine with small changes like that if it helps the story flow better. Assassin's Creed has always mixed real history with fiction, but even with that flexibility, the timeline still needs to feel logical. If Ezio is involved, it should fit naturally and not feel forced just to create hype. There was also a rumor a few months back that Elsa might somehow be connected to Claudia Auditori, Ezio's sister. Claudia was born in 1461, and after Brotherhood, we don't get much information about what happens to her later in life. That leaves some room for Ubisoft to build a connection there. If Hexe links Elsa to the Auditori bloodline in some way, that would explain why Ezio gets involved. But again, that kind of connection needs to actually add something meaningful to the story, not just be there for nostalgia. The other big detail is about combat getting a major overhaul. Hexe is said to be rebuilding its combat system from the ground up, and they have even hired a contortionist for motion capture. A contortionist is someone who can bend and twist their bodies in extreme ways, so that likely means we could see some very unique animations, maybe even some crazy finishers. It could also mean they are trying to make combat feel smoother and less stiff than recent entries. At the same time, I've heard the word overhaul too many times with Assassin's Creed. Big changes have been promised before, but sometimes the final result felt more like small adjustments. So while this sounds promising, I want to see actual gameplay before getting too hyped. Another important detail is that Hexe will be more like a traditional Assassin's Creed experience rather than a heavy RPG. We have known for a while now that Hexe won't be a full RPG, and there were earlier rumors that it could be more linear, with some open areas to explore instead of one massive open world. The older games had dense cities, smaller maps, and missions that guided you through the story instead of stretching it endlessly. There were no level requirements, no dialogue choices, and no branching paths slowing things down. So traditional doesn't mean going backwards, it just means returning to that cleaner, clutter-free identity. What I would really like to see is Hexe evolve in that approach while still keeping the overall scale strong. Exploration is a big part of Assassin's Creed, and I wouldn't want the map to feel too small. A focused design is great, but the world still needs to feel worth exploring. One more thing Tom Henderson mentioned is that Hexe is the project that many people at Ubisoft Montreal actually want to work on. According to him, there's genuine excitement around this game internally. And honestly, with so many projects at Ubisoft getting cancelled recently, it's reassuring to hear that there's at least one project that they seem confident about. That doesn't guarantee quality, but it does suggest this is something the studio really wants to get right. And finally, the release window. Hexe is now targeting holiday 2027, which means it has been delayed by 1 full year from what was originally expected. That also means the game will have more than 5 years in development since it was announced in 2022. That makes it one of the longest development cycles for an Assassin's Creed game. I'm honestly okay with waiting if it means the game launches in a better state. I would rather get a polished and complete experience than see it rushed just to hit a date. But at the same time, a delay like this shows the development hasn't been perfectly smooth. So when Hexe finally releases in 2027, it needs to feel finished from day one. And please, let the jump button be there at launch, not added a year later through an update. So yeah, these are all the recent leaks and rumors around Hexe. Ezio possibly returning, a revamped combat system, and a shift back to a more traditional Assassin's Creed experience. It all sounds really good, maybe even a little too good. But if it's handled properly, Hexe could finally be the kind of Assassin's Creed game many of us have been waiting for. So what do you think about Ezio potentially coming back? Would you like to see him return one more time, or do you think his story should stay finished? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.